Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather on this 7th day of October 2018. I'm Dave Percy. Satellite imagery, well, first, there's no watches, warnings, or advisories anywhere in the state today or tomorrow. There was earlier today a dense fog advisory for the central panhandle. Some areas had visibilities down there, along with the rain down to a quarter mile here in the central part of the southeast coast. That's improved this afternoon. That advisory has ended. Otherwise, you can see the moisture streaming on in, mostly to the south. The heaviest moisture here that's still off the coast, moving by to the south. But they did get some rain down over the southern panhandle and even up over the northern areas with a little bit lesser amounts in between. And then this area of cloudiness brought some pretty good rainfall, wetting rains to the south central Alaska area, extending back to the northwest here to the Seward Peninsula. Nome picked up about 3/10 of an inch of rain today, and moisture spreading up in across Kotzebue Sound, along with some easterly winds of 30 miles an hour reported at Kotzebue at the airport. See clear skies here again along much of the central and eastern Arctic coast southward into the nearly into the 40-mile country. Start picking up some clouds as you head down toward Delta Junction and Northway. And then a small but pretty vigorous system moving northward toward the central Aleutians today brought gale force winds with it. Nikolsky this afternoon getting winds gusting to 40 miles an hour, while Adak was seeing winds 40 to 50 miles per hour in gusts, both at Adak and Atka. And the main rain band here mostly right there in the central Aleutians, and Adak recorded about 2/3 of an inch of precipitation with that system. Otherwise, break here over at Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, and dry afternoon there for Kodiak Island, and a little bit of moisture, lighter moisture out there towards Shemya and Attu, but a lot of clouds here over the northern Bering Sea spreading up into the Chukchi Sea. And on the chart today, low pressure right about in this position off the southeast coast, or actually south of Yakutat, and then the frontal system spread the rain in across the panhandle, not quite as heavy as I thought you were going to see, as I thought you'd get yesterday. Today, I thought yesterday you get heavier amounts down there. Juneau, for example, had just 1/100th of an inch of rain, but up to the northwest, Taku River, there on the Haines Highway, or I'm sorry, the Chilkat River Bridge on the Haines Highway, they had about 1.5 inches of precipitation, while the Taku had nearly 1 inch along up to the northeast of Juneau. Otherwise, rainfall amounts weren't all that heavy. Those are two kind of exceptional amounts there, with much lighter amounts elsewhere. And 4/10 of an inch fell Independence Mine here in south central Alaska, with this trough that's lifting northward, seeing some clearing following in behind today. By contrast, Palmer, just 0.04 of an inch during the same time period, with this, and some rain and lighter amounts off to the northwest, clearing behind it. And then that system out here pretty tight, again with those gale force winds. And for tonight, we'll see the front advances eastward. So we got gale warnings out through tonight for the eastern Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula areas, and also over the southeast Bering Sea here in advance of the frontal boundary. Winds drop off dramatically along with the precipitation. May even see some clearing there around Adak and then into Atka, but later tonight more showers will swing in toward Adak and extend back toward Shemya with this trough here on the south side of that 984 slow moving millibar low. Weak trough up here over the Chukchi Sea that could kick off a few rain or snow showers, very light, whatever does fall, and that would be mostly in the form of drizzle, low clouds, and fog through the Bering Strait, to lingering moisture but diminishing there on the southern Seward Peninsula. Dry over the southwest interior, maybe some isolated showers possible along the Nulato Hills, and around Denali. This trough continues to weaken and really almost becoming stationary, but that'll bring some areas of light precipitation to mostly of the Alaska Range and in across the northeast Copper River Basin. Some showers extending down to about Yakutat. New low center pushes in across the Queen Charlotte Islands. That's going to take the heaviest precipitation with it, but there's still a pretty good chance of rain tonight. Rain and fog across central and southern southeast coast. Really looks like about 3/4 of the Panhandle there will have best chance of rain, lighter to the north and probably dry for Lynn Canal Glacier Bay. And looks like rain will be on the increase there for the western Alaska Peninsula, and to a lesser extent the winds, but they will be gale force eventually tonight. And for tomorrow, a new system pulls northward here, and the gradient right across the Alaska Peninsula. So it could be gale force gusts continuing tomorrow. This front really not moving too fast. Looks like it'll be right over on Alaska and close to the Pribilof Islands. So that's going to make a wet, windy day Monday for those areas on down. Winds will increase along the southwest coast, especially Nunivak Island, but generally cloudy skies and dry conditions, risk of a shower there around Cape Newenham. And then dry, variably cloudy, some clouds right through the central interior, but high pressure, light winds, dry conditions, and again, weak trough keeps a chance of some very light moisture of the mixed variety there along the central western Arctic coast. And the trough will spread some more rain in toward Adak later on, and gusty northwest winds on the increase for the western Aleutians. Could see gale force northwest winds with that during the afternoon tomorrow. Otherwise, moisture is decreasing as it pulls away from the Panhandle. Showers, though, are going to linger. It looks like at this point in time they'll linger along the eastern border areas, especially the southern portions, through tomorrow afternoon, and probably won't end until sometime during the evening for the areas towards Stewart and Hyder. But in the afternoon tomorrow, could see some clearing showing up right along the outer coastline. Mostly sunny day here for south central Alaska with light winds. You can see no gradient at all, so depending on how much clearing we get tonight, could be some low clouds and fog forming. Matanuska, Sitna Valley, as well as Cook Inlet, possibly even Prince William Sound, Copper River Basin, places like that. Otherwise, tomorrow that should burn off and be a very nice afternoon, even up into the eastern interior. Outlook for Tuesday, dry here across the Panhandle, sunshine, but clouds increasing in the afternoon in the mid and high varieties as the moisture associated with this trough weakening system spreads in, but you can see the rain holding well back to the west there and extending up into the Barren Islands, Kenai Peninsula. That'll be lifting northward slowly. It should stay dry, but more clouds for Cook Inlet and the valleys on Tuesday afternoon. Mostly sunny here through the central interior to 40-mile country down in the Copper River Basin. Start picking up some clouds down toward the Coast Range, Prince William Sound. And a trough dropping down from the Arctic will bring a decent chance of some light snow here to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, extending down into the eastern north slope to the Brooks Range, tapering off with some flurries back toward the central coast. Good easterly flow, VFR, sunshine, clear skies here for the northwest coast. Kivalina, Red Dog, and Selawik, in those areas, they'll be clear but breezy but dry. And this weakening front will keep a chance of rain along the southwest coast. Winds will be lighter, another system developing and pulling northward here toward the Alaska Peninsula in the afternoon. That'll increase mostly the rainfall. Looks like a good slug of moisture will come north with this. The main wind field back to the south, so you won't see too much of an increase in the wind right away with that system. And then looks like it'll be quite windy across the central Aleutians, probably gale force westerlies with rain with another trough here. And actually, this low is a new low. The previous one that was in about that position, the map before, weakens, moves up here and is right here, really troughs out and weakens considerably along with a frontal boundary. But this one coming westward definitely has more wind associated with it, but then those showers and wind tapering off out toward the western Aleutians. Low temperatures for tonight, again, anywhere from 0 to 15 over the eastern interior to lower 30s, or actually kind of a contrast from 20s to lower 30s across Copper River Basin, mid to upper 30s south central Alaska, lower to mid 40s southwest interior, upper 40s Alaska Peninsula, mid 40s for the Panhandle, lower 20s eastern Beaufort Sea coast, right around freezing there at Point Barrow. And for the highs tomorrow, low 30s east side there on the Arctic coast, lower 40s on the west side, 45 to 50 up here over the northwest, 50 to 55, Bristol Bay, into the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, mid-50s, maybe 6, 7, possibly 8. So sit in the valley tomorrow with sunshine, and lower 50s Copper River Basin. Lower to mid-50s for the Panhandle for the highs, and out in the Aleutians, upper 40s, lower 50s, pretty typical. Lows not much lower than that the following morning, lower to mid-40s out that way, lower 40s for the Pribilofs, and a little bit milder here over the eastern interior now. Call it 5 to 15 for the lows, and 20s to lower 30s Copper River Basin, 40s as high as upper 40s for the southwest coast and Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island. And taking a look at the high temperatures for Tuesday afternoon, getting above freezing now, just edging above there at Barter Island, forecast high 33, mid-30s for the north slope here, lower 50s for the Panhandle, and lower to mid-50s south central Alaska, tad warmer for Bristol Bay.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into the first flying weather graphic here, IFR, pretty good swath here from, well, the Noatak Valley and south side of the western Brooks Range, DeLong Mountains, right into the mid-Tanana Valley, or the around Tanana, let's say, into Denali and to the mid-Tanana Valley. Then it breaks out to VFR over toward the border. Some IFR, though, slipping on down into the northeast part of the Copper River Basin, south along the western slopes of the western Alaska Range, northern coast of Bristol Bay, right up to Nunivak Island. Marginal for the Pribilofs VFR zone here, drifting eastward across Adak and Atka, and good VFR up over the northeast, marginal for the Panhandle. Monday afternoon, mostly marginal VFR here for the southeast coast, except Prince of Wales Island over to possibly Metlakatla, becoming VFR. VFR south and east of the Alaska Range for on down to the Gulf of Alaska. Kodiak Island, southwest side, some marginal VFR, narrow band of IFR here with that system out in the Bering Sea here from St. Matthew Island down across Unmak Island to about, say, False Pass or so. And marginal for the western Aleutians. Marginal VFR now improving here through the Tanana Valley, VFR for the upper Yukon Valley, and some areas of marginal VFR to IFR for the North Slope, Brooks Range, and mostly the western Arctic coast. And then for Tuesday morning, marginal VFR with IFR here, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, a little bit back to the west. Marginal, though, through the Strait, Seward Peninsula. IFR here, St. Matthew Island, now to the Alaska Peninsula, pushing up towards southern Kodiak Island. And we still have that breakout here over the central Aleutians, or well, actually between Nikolsky and Atka, and then back into the marginal, but good VFR for the Panhandle, southeast interior, northward to the southern slopes of the eastern Brooks Range. Tuesday afternoon, good VFR here from Kotzebue Sound, Noatak Valley areas, right on over to the border, down across Copper River Basin. VFR, Madanuska-Susitna Valley, Cook Inlet, but IFR, again, on the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, increasing here as you get down toward Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, Fognak Island, down to, say, Kodiak State Airport. Patch IFR here, Togiak Bay into the southwest mountains, otherwise marginal. Good VFR for the Panhandle. And it passes tomorrow, VFR becoming marginal late in the afternoon for Anatuvik, some moisture moving on in, but won't reach out again. It'll be VFR the entire day. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR throughout the day on Monday. And for rain, he's starting out marginal, becoming VFR gradually, hopefully by midday. And for windy, starting out IFR, trending toward VFR into the afternoon. And Isabel improving also from marginal conditions early on, and then becoming VFR. Ventasta IFR becoming VFR. That probably won't occur until late in the afternoon. And for Tanita, marginal VFR becomes VFR. And Portage, VFR, but starting out with some marginal stuff on the western entrance there, but that'll become VFR probably by noontime. And for Chilcoot and White, occasionally marginal. Looking at the freezing levels here, about 4,000 to 6,000 feet here over the eastern Bering Sea to the Alaska Peninsula, and kind of a gradient tightens here, southern Alaska 2,000 to 6,000 feet, and it really tightens over the Panhandle, anywhere from 2,000 to 8,000 or 9,000 feet. With the cold air still in over the eastern interior. And the icing threat, none over interior Alaska or the mainland areas from coast to coast. But this area exiting and ending, diminishing throughout the day. Could be some mixed icing there, isolated moderate. But again, that's moving off into Canada. And could probably see some considerable moderate rime icing here over the Pribilofs with the moisture out in the Bering Sea becoming just isolated moderate for the Fox Islands into the Alaska Peninsula. Another patch out just west of Adak. Jet stream ridging coming up the west coast tomorrow ahead of a deeper trough here over the west central Bering Sea. Jet down and around that, about 100 knots coming up and over the top. 100 knot jet right along the North Gulf Coast. 140 knot northwest jet there right along the coast of the Panhandle. 9,000 feet, 20 to 40 knots. Strongest wind just off the coast here, the southeast coast. Light under the ridge axis. And then it looks like 40 to 60 knot winds ahead of this next system. Same thing at 3,000 feet. A little more southeasterly here, but the ridge is still in place. And turbulence, moderate chop there along the central and south coast of the Panhandle. Southwest coast to Cape Newnham, Alaska Peninsula.
We have a big solar flare coming in, so we're out here on an aurora hunt. It's a CME, it's a dynamite, coronal mass ejection. It's when the sun, it kicks off energy and these explosions that are larger than the Earth, explosion type things coming off of sunspots. And if that energy is pointing straight at the Earth, it gets caught up in our magnetic field, and that energy, electrons, come down our magnetic field, collide with oxygen up there about 50 or a couple hundred miles high, and that's what generates the northern lights. My job as the photographer and the aurora hunter is to be in position, you know, location, location, location. And I like to think I'm composing. Mother Nature, it's a bit of a teamwork thing, you know, she's got to put on the show, but I have to be in the right position and of course with the right tools and the know-how. I've stopped keeping track of how much time I spend out here in terms of hours. It's more in terms of weeks or months, or at this point years now. You know, it was always in me. Even when I was a kid growing up in the lower 48, I would spend nights sleeping on our trampoline, just staring at the stars. I'm in 4th grade and I'm going, wow, look at those stars. And I'd see how many nights in a row I could sleep on the trampoline. And I think my record was 23 nights in a row. So I was doing kind of strange things for an Iowa country boy. I can remember specifically the very first time I saw the Northern Lights. It was 1989, the peak of the solar cycle, and I was going to graduate school in Laramie, Wyoming. And all of a sudden we had heard the Northern Lights were out. It's like, what are those? I'd never really seen them before. And my goodness gracious, we were on top of a mountain in the Laramie Range and they were turning blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the very first picture I took, that was 1990. Now, an old film camera, Pentax K1000 on a plastic Kmart tripod. Took 2 shots on slide film and got them back. And I thought, oh my gosh, this beautiful green thing swirling about. And from that moment, I was hooked. When I realized that you could preserve the auroras on film, I just experimented a ton. I'd had a heaping stack of slides, the no good ones. The experiments gone wrong, you know, too dark, fuzzy, out of focus, too light. I had this huge garbage can full of excess slide film, and that was just the learning curve. Well, when I go out here, it's all about getting the shot. And my wife and I, we've called it the hero shot. But the hero shot is the one where you just come home and you go, look at this. And everyone goes, wow, and you feel like a hero. It's a wonderful feeling, you know. It's good for the ego, of course. It's good for the business. But if you kind of strip that away, it's good for what's inside of you, because that's really the hero moment in nature. And Mother Nature's putting on this show that is just mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. When I first resigned from my day job, that was in 1996, and decided I wanted to become a full-time aurora hunter, my goal from that moment and to this day still is to get one hero shot a year. I figured, and I'm talking the kind that somebody wants to buy from you and hang on their wall, where the auroras are extremely bright, very active, turning colors, where you can't believe your eyes. If you're going to preserve a little sample of that with a photograph, well, it's what we call the hero shot. Wow, what a feeling. I mean, oh, you're elevated, levitating, you are lifted up. Your spirits are so high that I love that feeling. And I think I get that so much from seeing cool things in nature that I will go way out of my way to find that. And I can, you know, the next day, well, I'll be just laying there thinking about it and thinking how lucky I was, or how fortunate. Of course, I just, you know, spent 2 weeks sitting there staring at the sky and not seeing anything, so you got to remember that, you know, luck is kind of a relative term, but I still just feel incredibly lucky to be even in a position to where I could have been there, taken a photograph of it, and just mainly experienced it. That feeling could last for days.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the coastal water forecast here for the, for the southeast coast. We've got, well, west-northwest winds at about 25 knots, pretty uniform. Seas running mostly around 11 feet, 9 feet in the north coast. Central southern inside waters, 15-knot winds from the north and northwest with 3-foot seas. Small craft advisories for northern Lynn Canal, north 25 and seas up to 5 feet. Moving on to Tuesday. No change up here for Lynn Canal. Still small craft advisories for those northerly winds, but much lighter and more variable here along the south coast. You can see at 10 knots, but those seas still hanging in at 8 feet. And east-southeast, 10 to 20 knots here on the north side. Light winds for Clarence Strait out of the northwest, and 15-knot winds for Stevens Passage. Prince William Sound, northwest 15, increased to 20 knots out for the eastern North Gulf Coast, or actually all of the North Gulf Coast, northwest at 20, 8-foot seas. West 20 for the Barren Islands, seas 8 feet, northeast 15 Kamishak Bay and southern Cook Inlet, and 10 knots north of the Forelands. For Tuesday, northeast 15 here, northern Cook Inlet, pick up to 20 knots south of the Forelands. Good stiff northeast wind at 30 knots. Small craft advisories there for Kamishak Bay, east 30 for the Barren Islands. Small craft advisories for the western North Gulf Coast, east 25, seas 9 feet, northeast 15 for Prince William Sound, and seas running right around 3 feet there, and about 8 feet for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Kodiak Island, light winds in Shelikof Strait tomorrow. Not too bad on the east side of Kodiak as well, south 15, but seas up to 9 feet. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, southeast 20, and southeast 30 knots for the Alaska Peninsula. Bristol Bay, east 25. Outlook for Tuesday, southeast 25 for Bristol Bay. Lighter winds for the peninsula now, south 20 on the Bering Sea side, Pacific side, southwest 15. And Castle Cape to Sitkinak got the stronger wind field now shifting into Kodiak Island. Small craft advisories there. South 30, east side of Kodiak. Gales in the forecast for Shelikof Strait for 35-knot winds, seas up to 11 feet. Small craft advisory, 25-knot winds on average from the west out here for the western Aleutians, seas 8 to 11 feet. The central Aleutians, Adak and Atka, 15 to 20 knots south-southwesterlies. And then winds increase here, gales there for the, especially for Unalaska Island, earlier on for Umak Island, but those will be dropping off behind that slow moving front tomorrow afternoon, but staying gale force there for Unalaska Island. And then those will drop off for the next day, 20 knots, and then picking back up, 25 knots. Tighter gradient out here over the central Aleutian southern Bering. So we're looking at 30-knot winds, possible gale force gusts here for the central Aleutians, and then minimum gales on out from the area west of Adak on out to Shimmy and Attu. Those seas 14 to 15 feet. For the southwest coast, southeast winds 30 knots, 9 to 11 foot seas. Southeast 35 there for the Pribilofs. That'll be rolling up in the afternoon to that level of 13-foot seas. East 30 knots, 12-foot seas for St. Matthew Island, 25-knot winds. For St. Lawrence Island, 8-foot seas, only 15. In Norton Sound, seas pretty slight at 2 feet. Those will increase though for Tuesday. East 25 there in the Sound, and 30-knot easterlies for St. Lawrence Island. Not much change here in the southwest coast. Southeast 30, 8 to 9 foot seas. Lighter winds over the Pribilof, south 20 knots, and southeast 30 for the northern Bering Sea around St. Matthew Island. Seas at about 11 feet. Much lighter winds than you've seen for the last few days here for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. West 10 to 15 tomorrow. Southwest 10 on the central coast, and seas 3 to 4 feet. 15-knot winds here. West side to Cape Thompson and the Chukchi Sea, south 15. And then for Tuesday, east 25 knots, seas 5 feet. And here for the western capes there, Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, northeast 20, back down to 15 from the north, or 10 to 15 central and west side, staying west 10 to 15 on the east side with 2 to 3 foot seas. For tonight again, this low pressure area tracks northward here and holds about steady on intensity. The front edges eastward, gale force winds, rain possibly moderate, maybe briefly heavy into Unalaska and up to the Pribilofs. Rain increasing along with a little bit of an increase in the wind for the Alaska Peninsula. Dry over the interior. We've got this trough continuing to dissipate. It's almost stuck under the high here. And so a band of light rain slowly edges northward. We probably won't get past the Alaska Range. This system cutting into the south, taking the heaviest precip with it, but it'll stay pretty damp over the southern 3/4 of the Panhandle. And then it'll dry out tomorrow afternoon. Tuesday, the next system pushes rain into the southwest coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.